1, 2, 3. Sid Sports Sunday. Every Sunday from the NJDiet.com studios. 77 WABC New York. A Cumulus station. This is Sid Sports Sunday. Driven by Ramsey Mazda. Sid Rosenberg. The stories, the stats, the edge.
From the corner. 17 seconds from Game 7 or from championship number 6. Jordan, open, Chicago with the lead. The Chicago Bulls have won their 6th NBA championship.
The moments.
He keeps off to the Devils, plays it cross ice into the far corner. Matteau swoops in to intercept. Matteau behind the net, swings it in front. He scores! Matteau! Defend Matteau! And the Rangers have one more hill to climb, baby! But it's moved Vancouver! The Rangers are headed to the finals!
This is Sid Sports Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda on 77 WABC. Now, Sid Rosenberg.
And coming to you live as we do each and every Sunday, 17 floors above legendary Madison Square Garden. It is a Sid Sports Sunday for the very last Sunday in March here in 2019 as April looms right around the corner. April the 1st coming up tomorrow, in fact. So last day of March back here on a Sid Sports Sunday, and great to be back. Do want to thank Russ Salzberg and especially my boy Mike Gunzelman, the fine executive producer of this program, for doing a great job last week in my absence. I don't really know that. I was on the beach in Boca Raton. I have no idea what you guys did. You could have been Marconi Award winners. You could have sucked. I have no idea. But knowing both of you, Russ and Mike, it had to be great. And I did get one tweet saying you were good. So congratulations, Mike. But thank you. Summer's coming up, and we'll get you more of these because I'm going to take some more time off. A week ago today, I was on the beach in Boca Raton, but today's beautiful, and spring is right around the corner, mid-60s before you know it, and this is such an exciting time of year if you're a sports fan, right? NCAA basketball, where we got 2 teams now heading to the Final Four. First time ever, Texas Tech on their way to the Final Four. That amazing win last night over, I was about to say Purdue, over Gonzaga, and they've done an amazing job all tournament long. And then Virginia, of course, they get the win as well in the most improbable of fashion. I know Purdue's head coach, Matt Painter, is taking a beating today for electing to foul up by 3 late in the game, but that's the right move. I mean, it was really going to take a confluence of miracles for Virginia to be able to tie and or win that game in the last 6 seconds of regulation. And as it turned out, they got those miracles. And they eventually won the basketball game in overtime. But I do think criticizing Purdue's head coach is a bit much today. So we're going to get to all of that. Chris Spatola is a guy that used to work for Mike Krzyzewski at Duke for many, many years. He's now one of ESPN's top college basketball analysts. He will join us live on Sid Sports Sunday. Coming up this morning, 2 more games today, of course. Michigan State, they've been red hot under Tom Izzo, taking on Duke. Duke's not been red hot. I mean, Duke, the last couple of games, barely getting by. Beat Virginia Tech by just a bucket last game. And the game before that, they were losing late. And Cam Reddish may very well be out again. Their third option behind R.J. Barrett and Zion Williamson. So Duke could have a long day today against Michigan State. Of course, the winner of that basketball game will end up taking on Texas Tech, who just D's you down. And then, of course, the other game today features Kentucky taking on Auburn. They met twice during the regular season, and Kentucky cleaned their clocks. Last time they played in February, in fact, Kentucky beat Auburn by 27 points. On average, they beat Auburn 81-66 during the regular season. But Auburn is red hot, too, coming off a big win over North Carolina. So we'll see. The winner of that game, of course, will take on Virginia in the other bracket. So we got that covered with Chris Spatola coming up. You know what? Before we get there, though, talking about Purdue and Matt Painter, Virginia, of course, gets the 1 free throw to put them down by 2, and then the inbound play goes all awry. And the next thing you know, Diakite ends up with the basketball for Virginia. Reminded me a lot of the Wittenberg-Lorenzo Charles play for North Carolina State that got Jim Valvano the championship win over Houston. Let's go back to last night. Again, Diakite gets the basketball, puts it in to force overtime, and then Virginia is on their way to Minnesota.
Virginia on the left wing with Hunter. He rips. He drives right. Puts it up off the glass. He got it. Virginia back in front. 76-75.
How about that? So anyway, that game, again, in overtime. Virginia gets the win, and they move on. First Final Four appearance since 1984. But I do want to get to some other stuff. Mets and Yankees on the table today. The Mets off to a 2-0 start. Jacob deGrom, great game one. Noah Syndergaard, not great game two, but the Met offense comes alive yesterday with names you may not know of. 3 names, in fact, that were not on the Mets opening day roster last year that came up huge yesterday. Guys like J.D. Davis. How about the game he had yesterday? How about McNeil? 4 base hits yesterday. So even Pete Alonso, a big game yesterday, the rookie first baseman. So young guys coming up big for the Mets, and they will look to sweep the Washington Nationals later on this afternoon with Zach Wheeler, fresh off his most improved player in the league last year. He'll be on the mound for the Mets later on today. The Yankees, they want to rebound from a bad loss yesterday. James Paxton, not great. Rough day for Miguel Andujar, left a bunch of guys on base. So the Yankees, I should say, split the first 2 with Baltimore. The rubber match coming up today at the stadium, and Jay Happ will get the start for the Yanks. But I want to tell you about this weekend. And if you're a Bernie and Sid in the morning listener, it's going to get very repetitive tomorrow. Deal with it. Because we're going to do the same thing on that show I'm doing right here. And that is the special weekend that I had, that 77 WABC had, as we get ready, folks, to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the Bernie and Sid in the Morning show coming up on Tuesday. Tuesday morning will be 1 year to the day that Bernie and I replaced Imus. Imus's last show was a year ago Friday when he dropped the mic, and very good radio, very emotional radio. So Tuesday will be the 1-year anniversary of the Bernie and Sid in the Morning show. I know Jill has some special stuff planned. Don't know exactly who's stopping by. We are trying once again this week to get the president back. He did join us last year on our 5th show, week 1 of Bernie and Sid in the Morning. So we'll see if we can get Trump back. We're trying. But at the very least, we'll have a bunch of very big names stopping by this week, along with the 10, 11, 12, 13 big names we get every week anyway. So big week coming up. But let me start with Friday night. What a great job by sales guy Jimmy in Corvea. His girl Mia, who's in promotions. Leslie Slender, can't say enough about her. They put together an event with the help of Rob Casatelli on Staten Island at a great place called the Kettle Block, where it was a fundraiser. The Notre Dame Club of Staten Island was there. The Bread of Life folks, Joe Delaney and Tom, they were there. And they honored a great man, a man by the name of Tom McGlynn, Vietnam veteran, NYPD police officer, died last year. Met his whole family, his wife, his sons, his daughter-in-law. What a beautiful family. What this guy, God rest his soul, Tom McGlynn, had to be a great guy. All you have to do is meet his wife and his kids to figure out what kind of guy he must have been. And we were there for a couple of games on Friday night. In fact, if you really follow college basketball, you're going to remember Kyle McElhaney about a decade ago at Notre Dame. This kid could shoot like Chris Mullin. I mean, just an incredible shooter. Went on to almost make the Nets. Instead, played basketball in Europe, Greece, and Italy for the last 9 years. Just got back to Staten Island, I believe, last year. He's actually coaching at the high school where he started on Staten Island over a decade ago. A great kid. He was there Friday night, too, with his wife, and we raised a ton of money. They gave away some awesome raffle gifts, and it was just a wonderful experience for me. It really was. Again, the Notre Dame Club of Staten Island, the Bread of Life. These people now, from a very small operation, now they provide food for thousands and thousands. I believe over 70,000 they feed. And all this went down at the Kettle Block on Friday night in Staten Island. So that's how the weekend started for me. Then last night, this one goes through the roof. So my buddy Corey Zelnick, you guys know who he is. If you listen to Bernie and Sid, he owns the building where Joseph Aboud's store is, 49th and Madison. So because of Aboud, I got to know Corey Zelnick. And Corey and I have become very, very good friends. And he has courtside tickets, second row to be exact. Second row tickets right in the middle of the court at Madison Square Garden. So we had dinner plans to go out last night, Corey, his fiancée, Danielle and I, and he canceled. His fiancée had something going on. So we felt really badly about it. So he said, listen, I can't go for dinner, but I know your relationship with the Miami Heat, being I was in South Florida for over a decade, and I covered Dwayne Wade basically his whole career. He said, I can't go to the game, can't meet you for dinner, but how about you take Danielle, Ava, and Gabe and go to the Garden, sit in my seats, second row, middle of the court for the Heat and the Knicks. I'm like, oh, come on, I can't do it. Okay. So sure enough, we trekked to Madison Square Garden last night. It started right away. We had not even walked into the Garden yet. We're on the street walking in, and there's Steve Sciarippa, our dear buddy from The Sopranos and Blue Bloods. There's the great actor John Turturro. This is what you get, folks. When you go out in New York City on a Saturday night and you go to Madison Square Garden, whether it's a Knick game, a Ranger game, or an Ariana Grande concert, you're going to see some big-time people. So we saw those guys before we even walked in. Then we walk in, and sure enough, we're sitting right on the court, right next to the scorer's bench. Great to see my dear friend Mike Breen last night, Walt Clyde Frazier, the announcer for the Heat, Eric Reed. He was there last night, all the TV people. And then right to my left, where they have the big shots on the court, you had John McEnroe, John Turturro, Steve Sciarippa, and how about quarterback of your Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, very, very cool, right? So the game starts. Now, look, the Heat need this game. Right now, the Heat are the 8th seed in the East, and the top 8 seeds in each conference makes the playoffs. And we're only down now to about 5 or 6 basketball games left and 3 or 4 hockey games left. So all these games count. Now, the Nets, they're the 7th seed in Brooklyn, and they clobbered the Boston Celtics at home last night to improve to 39-38. So the Heat really needed to win last night because right behind the Heat at 38-39, a half a game back of Miami, is the Orlando Magic. You can't come to New York, take on a Knicks team that's lost 61 games this year. That's how pathetic they are. They'll be better next year. Kevin Durant, Jimmy Butler, Kyrie Irving, Zion Williamson, they can all be here. So next year, the Garden is going to be hopping. It's still hopping, but the Knicks are terrible. So you can't come here if you're Miami trying to make the playoffs and lose to the Knicks. Well, for about 2.5 quarters, they were losing to the Knicks. Moutier looked great. Cornette's making threes. And Miami's going, what are we doing? One guy that played great for the Heat last night, Dion Waiters, he just killed the Knicks last night. But then Dwayne Wade started taking over. I think Wade put in 18 or 16 before it was said and done, but he really helped lead the charge in the second half. And the Heat erased what was a 6-point halftime deficit, and they go on to win the game by basically double figures. And they do improve to 38-38. So right now, they're a half a game behind the Nets for the 7th spot and a half a game ahead of Orlando for the 8th and final playoff spot. But that wasn't the big news. The big news was Dwayne Wade, one of the greatest players in the history of the game. When you start to line up the greatest 2 guards ever, 2 guards, always Michael, number 1. Always Kobe, number 2. Not point guards, not Magic, not Isaiah, not the Big O, 2 guards. Michael 1, Kobe 2. After that, you're going to have a very, very hard time finding a better 2 guard in the history of the game than Dwayne. He may not be 3, he may be 5, he may be 6, but he's right there. And listen, even before LeBron James and Chris Bosh came to Miami, and Wade and those guys went to 4 consecutive NBA Finals, winning 2 of those, Dwayne Wade won a championship in Miami basically by himself. He had Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq had a huge Eastern Conference Finals, but Shaq disappeared against the Mavericks in the finals. He really did. In fact, Alonzo Mourning had bigger plays. And they had Antoine Walker and Gary Payton, and all these guys made contributions. But Dwayne Wade basically beat that Maverick team by himself. He's got 3 championships, and living in Miami for as long as I did, Boca, 16 years. When you talk about the great athletes there are 2, Dan Marino and Dwayne Wade. Well, Wade played his last game ever at Madison Square Garden last night. He did announce his retirement before the start of the year. Much like we saw here, guys, with Derek Jeter, Mariano Rivera, Wade has been on a goodbye tour all season. Whenever he goes to an arena, guys present jerseys to him. And it was unbelievable to be at the Garden in New York last night and hear the chants. Look, many years, the Knicks were good. Carmelo Anthony, the old days of Patrick Ewing versus Alonzo Mourning. And I lived in Miami. And I would go down there, and there would be a healthy percentage of Knicks fans in the Miami Arena and American Airlines Arena every series. And they were brutal series, brutal. But the Heat still won the crowd battle. It was close in Miami. Last night, you would have thought you were in Miami. The chants for Dwayne Wade were deafening. And I was one of those idiots. I'm a diehard Knicks fan, but I was there last night for Dwayne Wade. And the chants every time Wade touched the ball or hit a shot, you would have thought you were in Miami. And when the game was over and Wade had played his last game and they won the game, he actually kissed the floor in the center of the court at Madison Square Garden, put his hands up to the crowd to thank everybody, and here was a great number 3 talking to the TV cameras right after the game.
Yeah, you love playing here. You know, you hear about it. You know, when I played here in college, got an opportunity to play here in Coaches versus Cancer Classic. And it was just immediately that feel. That feel was there. And, getting an opportunity to come and play in the NBA has just been special. As a player, just in your last time, you just want to enjoy it. You know, the fans stayed around. And that was so cool, man, to be able to have that. You know, you expect that at home, maybe your last time. But on the road, you don't expect that. So for me, it was great.
Especially in New York, again, those series, the Heat and Knicks were just brutal. Ewing getting suspended, fights on the court, Larry Johnson. Now, of course, that wasn't Wade's teams. That was Mourning and Hardaway. But even Wade up against Carmelo and those teams, it was always nasty. Not last night. New York was really respectful. And at the end of the game, Tim Donovan, well, he said I should mention his name, but the PR guys for the Heat, I had reached out to them. I said, listen, I covered Dwayne his whole career down in Miami. Dwayne Wade is the reason why Jim Nance won't talk to me anymore. Because I kept Jim Nance on hold during the Masters when Dwayne Wade was on with me talking about his book. True story. I said, I got to get a picture with Wade. They said, listen, he takes one picture, only one, at the arena he's at. And unfortunately, he's already made a promise to Jamal Adams of the New York Jets. I said, Jamal Adams? I know he's a Pro Bowler. He's a great player. He's great. But Sid. So the PR guy goes, let me talk to Dwayne. So he actually goes to Dwayne Wade, and he says, listen, do you mind taking a second picture with Sid? And Dwayne goes, no, love Sid. So sure enough, go to my Twitter, at Sid Rosenberg, my Facebook, Sid Rosenberg, my Instagram, Sid Rosenberg. You're going to see pictures, of me, my beautiful son Gabriel, and Jamal Adams together waiting to take the picture with Dwayne Wade. And then sure enough, Wade, Sid, and Gabriel with a picture, center court, Madison Square Garden, his last game ever in New York. What a night. Not over yet. I go to bed. I get a text, 2:08 a.m. when the Heat arrived in Boston. They got to play the Celtics tomorrow night. Hey, Sid, it's Dwayne. Great to meet your son. From Dwayne Wade. Is that unreal? What a night. What a weekend. Anyway, we got a big show coming up today. Chris Spatola talking NCAA basketball. Anthony DiComo talking Mets. We're going to do it all, folks. 1-800-848-WABC. 1-800-848-9222. Welcome back to Sid Sports Sunday, and we'll be back right after these words.
'77 WABC. Spectacular guests, spectacular picks, spectacular sports, spectacular stories. Sid Sports Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda.
Spectacular.
77 WABC.
Spectacular. Anthony DiComo going to join us in a couple of minutes. Talk about the Mets again trying to sweep Washington, first series of the season. Off to a 2-0 start. Zach Wheeler on the mound for the Mets later on today. I really can't comment on this Porzingis story that broke last night. In fact, I gave it to Mike Breen at the Garden. If you don't know the story, Porzingis, who of course the Knicks traded the week of the Super Bowl to the Mavericks, he has been accused of rape here in New York. Not long after he tore his ACL, and we never saw Kristaps back on the court again. To the exact date, February 18th of last year, he, according to this lady, he raped her in the Sky Building in New York City. That's where Porzingis lived. According to reports, this woman lived in the same building. The reason why she said she waited a year to go to the police, and this is where it doesn't look good for her, is because she said that Porzingis had promised to give her $68,000 to keep her mouth shut. Well, somebody rapes me. First of all, he's making millions of dollars. $68K ain't going to do it. And second of all, you really can't come out a year later and talk about the emotional damage that's been done to you when you were waiting a year to collect some cash. Now, look, if he did this, then she's the victim. She can do whatever she wants, right? But it doesn't sound good that she waited a year in an effort to collect nearly $70K to bring this out. Doesn't mean he didn't do it. But I don't know enough about this yet. Neither does anybody in this market. Mike Francesa on his app right now, or somebody at FAN or Anita Marks at ES, whoever it is, they don't know dick. So I'm not going to talk about something as serious as rape without really knowing what went down. But I will say, waiting a year to collect money doesn't look good. But we'll see. Here's a Tommy on Staten Island on line 3. Good morning, Tommy.
Hey, Sid, I used to call FAN and Francesa. Screw them. I'm calling ABC and Sid Sports. How you doing, buddy?
Good man, Tommy. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the call. First thing, before I get into sports, Joe Tacopino, great guest. Love it. Look forward to whenever you and Bernie have him on. It's just fantastic.
Well, he's going to be on. You know, we've got Arthur Aidala every other Friday, the famed defense attorney. Tacopino, another good buddy of mine from Poly Prep. He's going to be on every single week. He is great. I'm glad you like him, Tommy. Thank you very much.
Yep. During the week, talking Yankees, you had, I think, Bob Clapper's on talking about the book.
Yeah.
And it was, why does Cashman get all this praise? He spent a small fortune, more than small countries have, the last 20 years, one championship. We have no pitching. All the
what do you mean? What do you mean one? What do you mean all those? What about the? What about 2000? Huh?
Yeah. After 2000, the last 19 years, they won in 2009. He spent Ellsbury money. That was a bad thing. He throws money out the window. All the money he spent for one championship. Why is the Yankee ownership giving him? He's like the man. He fired Girardi because he want. And why does he have so much power for a guy who's only won in the last 20 years?
Who do you want to? You want Steinbrenner running the team? Who do you want to have the power? You want Randy Levine running the team? Who do you want to have the power?
I want a real general manager out there.
Nah, listen, Tommy. Thank you for the call. Thank you for the call. He's in his 21st season for a reason. Now, I understand the Yankees are in this to win the World Series, Tommy. They've done it 27 times. And to be honest, this year, anything less than 28 is going to be a disappointment. And you're right. 2009, that A-Rod team is the only time they've won since 2000. They went to the World Series in 2001 with Joe Torre. They lost to Arizona. They got back in 2003, and they lost to the Marlins. So you're right. Only one championship. But not lean years. I mean, the Yankees are just about in it every single year. They're very good almost every single year. But you do judge the Yanks on championships, and they haven't done it. Now, he has made some bad deals. He has spent some money. They did not want to give Robbie Cano all that money that year, so guys like Ellsbury and Beltran got some money. But he has rebuilt this team, right? You go back to the core four, enjoyed all that success. Mariano, Jeter, Bernie, Andy. Well, maybe the Yankees have that now. Sanchez, still not great defensively, comes off a miserable offensive season. Got to hope he improves. Obviously, Aaron Judge is that guy. So he has done a good job of rebuilding this team for the next generation. And again, it's not just about winning championships if you're Cashman. It's about getting people to the stadium, right? It's about selling merchandise. If the Steinbrenners are making a ton of money, and the Yankees are really good, but not winning every single year, they're going to be happy. That's the bottom line, right? I mean, we say it's about championships, but for the Yanks, it's about making money. And as long as Bryant's been there, the Yankees have been ultra competitive. They've only won once, that's true, but they're in it every single year. And right now, this team is built for success for many years. And by the way, what is Brian Cashman's 21st season as the GM of the Yanks? Anyway, we'll take a short break. We'll go to the Mets, off to a 2-0 start, looking to sweep those Nats in Washington today behind Zach Wheeler, Anthony DiComo, talking New York Met baseball right after this.
77 WABC.
You gotta be ready to go.
Breakfast in bed with Sid. A dream come true. Sid Sports Sunday. Driven by Ramsey Mazda every Sunday.
Man, oh man, they can't stop us.
77 WABC.
That's ripped down the right field line, and McNeil's got his fourth hit of the day. Conforto in to score. Ramos will be held at third. Jeff McNeil fills out his dance card with a double. A 4-hit day for McNeil, and it's 9-4 New York.
That's why McNeil became so beloved with us Met fans last year, and we were worried, right? They got Robbie Cano, they got Jed Lowry. Where's McNeil going to get his at-bats? They moved him to the outfield, and then, of course, with the injuries with Frazier and Lowry, he gets some infield play, 4 hits. Couple of very unlikely heroes offensively for the Mets yesterday. A few of them, guys like J.D. Davis, the youngster Pete Alonso. So on what was not Noah Syndergaard's best day, blew a 3-run lead, the Mets pounded out 11 runs, and they just get by Scherzer. They beat up Strasburg pretty good. They look for the sweep today with Zach Wheeler on the mound in about 4 hours in Washington. Anthony DiComo does an unbelievable job of covering the New York Mets on a daily basis for MLB.com, making his second visit to Sid Sports Sunday. Our good friend Anthony DiComo. Good morning, Anthony.
Good morning, Sid. How are you?
I'm great. Nice to have you back. How can I be bad? First weekend in baseball, and already the Mets are 1 game better than the Yanks.
Yeah, I was just looking at the standings this morning. We're 3 days into the season. There's only 4 undefeated teams left, and the Mets are one of them. But, you know, it's early. The Royals, who are probably going to lose 90-100 games, are also one of them. So we'll see how it plays out. But this is about as good of a start for the Mets as could have hoped.
I actually disagree on the Royals, but we'll see. That division, the AL Central, the Indians are not. I know Chernoff is going to be upset. It's his kid, but they're not as good. So I don't know if Kansas City is going to be that bad. It won't be great. You're right. The Mets can be great. And we talked about before the start of the year, Anthony, what they needed to be great. Well, they gave DeGrom a boatload of money, and he was great. Syndergaard, not so great. Wheeler on the mound today. Your impression of Syndergaard yesterday blowing that 3-run lead and needing offense to win in Washington?
Yeah, it wasn't ideal for Syndergaard, and he made some really good pitches over the course of the game. He also made some not-so-good pitches, and those were largely the ones that got hit. So, it's not ideal for him, but I think it does speak to the fact that this is one of the best lineups the Mets have had over the past decade. I would say this and maybe 2016 going into that year are the best opening day lineups the Mets have been able to feature. There's not a lot of holes, and I like the lineup they put out there yesterday, subbing out Juan Lagares, subbing in J.D. Davis, who's got a lot of power, and also showed yesterday in the 8th inning that he was capable of kind of dunking a ball the other way for a really big hit. So, I think this pitching staff is going to be able to make a few more mistakes this year, which really they've had virtually no margin of error in years past. Even in 2015, when they wound up going to the World Series, the first half of that season, I mean, the offense was anemic, and people forget all about that. But they had no margin for error, and a lot of times over the past 5 years, this really good pitching staff has had no margin for error. Well, now you've got Robbie Cano in here. You've got Jeff McNeil in his second year. You've got Pete Alonso, who looks very much like a Rookie of the Year candidate. You've got all these guys from top to bottom. And the whole operation just seems a lot more professional. Guys capable of going the other way. Guys capable of hitting it out of the yard. Guys capable of doing a lot of things with the bat we haven't seen here in a while. So not that this is, the Boston Red Sox or the New York Yankees are the best offense in the league, but they're a much improved bunch from what they were last year.
No, there's no doubt. Listen, you make a great point. Cespedes really carried the team for years. He was the guy, even that World Series season against Kansas City, and now they are spreading the wealth. Let's talk about one of those guys you just mentioned. Cano took one at-bat for him to silence some of the critics that talked about, well, he was suspended 80 games last year, and how's he going to do without the steroids, and he's 36, and all that nonsense. Even though guys like you and Verducci and many others on this show have said to me, this guy's got 2 or 3 really good years left. Took all of one at-bat, Anthony, for Robbie Cano to silence some of his critics here in New York.
Yeah, and that's how I've always kind of felt about that contract since the Mets took it on, was you hope he's got 2 more all-star caliber seasons left, and then you hope after that he ages in a way that he's not just a total zero on the roster. And he showed, like you said, with one swing, that very first at-bat of the season, that he's still that all-star caliber player, at least for right now. And you look at the way this guy plays, and you're like, oh, that's what it's supposed to look like. I mean, offensively, defensively, he's always in the right place. He's always doing the right thing. Offensively, he's capable of, like I said, hitting the ball out of the park, pulling the ball out of the park, going the other way, being that 300 level type hitter. It is. That's what it's supposed to look like. That is an all-star caliber player. And if he can do that over the course of this year, then I don't think people are going to have any qualms about the fact that you're hooked up with this guy really into his 40s.
Now, the other guy they picked up, which I think improves the team dramatically, behind the plate, Wilson Ramos. He comes here. They really wanted Real Muto, who, by the way, did a home run for the Phillies along with Bryce Harper yesterday. But Ramos comes up big yesterday, gets 2 hits, knocks in his first 2 runs as a New York Met. And I think Met fans are going to see this kid pay huge dividends this season.
He got an infield hit yesterday. One of the first guys in baseball. Legging out an infield.
I think the last time a Met catcher got an infield hit was like Duffy Dyer.
Right. And look, offensively, he's one of the better options in the game. His problem has not been what he can do at the plate. His problem has been staying healthy. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on all year long. Can he stay in a spot where he's catching 5-6 times a week for the Mets? And if he can, I think the offensive numbers are going to be there. Defensively, I mean, he's I would say league average in a lot of areas, but it looks like Johnny Bench compared to some of the issues the Mets have had behind the plate in recent years. So to have a guy like that who has a chance to throw out base runners, things of that nature, and also can pop a few out of the park over the course of the year, I think it's a nice upgrade for the Mets. The key, again, is for him to stay on the field, for him to stay healthy, because it's something he really hasn't been able to do in his career. And if he goes on the disabled list at some point, all of a sudden you're looking at that mix again of Travis d'Arnaud or is it Tomas Nido, whoever you want to put in there, then I think maybe you have some issues. But for now, if he's in there, I do believe he's going to hit.
Anthony DiComo, MLB.com. Mets have a chance to sweep the Nationals. First series of the year today. Zach Wheeler on the mound. Then the Mets go to Miami, take on those powerful Derek Jeter Miami Marlins before returning home. Their home opener will be there, me and Guns, this Thursday for the same Washington Nationals. You were very high on Pete Alonso. Said 2 games in, you've already got him in the Rookie of the Year running. That may be a bit premature, but who knows? He looked really good yesterday. I was really happy he made the team ahead of Dominic Smith, maybe Todd Frazier at first base. So you really think Pete Alonso's in for a huge year?
I don't think it's premature at all. I think he comes into the year as one of 4 or 5 guys you could say has a real chance. The fact that the Mets decided to carry him on opening day gives him even more of a chance. And you look at him and you look
hold on. Let me ask you a question. If Todd Frazier is healthy, right? Do we know then, did Alonso make the team because he is a young up-and-comer and the injury to Frazier and Lowry made it easier? Does he make the team if those guys are healthy?
I think you have to at this point. With everything, and look, I was skeptical at first too. I was skeptical from day one, and Brody Van Wagenen came in and his message was, we're going to take the best 25 guys. We're going to take the best 25 guys. And he says it once and you kind of roll your eyes a little bit and say, okay, yeah, everyone says that. And he says it again, and he says it again. And by the end of spring training, he had painted himself into a corner where this guy was hitting 400 in spring with power, and you're not going to take him. He's not one of the best 25 guys. They had to at that point. I don't care if Todd Frazier is healthy, if Jed Lowry is healthy. They had to carry Pete Alonso, and if you're carrying him, you have to play him. So if Pete Alonso's continuing to have at-bats like this when Frazier comes back, when Lowry comes back, there's just no justification for sitting him. And look, I'm not saying Pete Alonso's going to go this whole year and just be an all-star caliber player and never slump. You know, he's going to have to make adjustments as pitchers, as the leagues start to figure him out. You know, he's a young kid. He has no experience at the big league level. So there are going to be some flaws. There are going to be some holes that are going to be exploited at points. But the talent, the offensive talent, is off the charts.
Yeah.
If you saw yesterday, he drilled a line drive off the right center field, off the out-of-town scoreboard out there. You know, he's got the power. Watch him in BP, just moonshots, pull side, opposite field. He's not just a bopper. He can go the other way. He can hit for a relatively high average for the amount of power that he brings. So, yeah, I'm not going to sit here and predict that he's going to win the Rookie of the Year award.
Right.
But I would be surprised if he's not in the top 3 when all is said and done, just based on the sheer talent level.
Fair enough. Anthony DiComo, MLB.com. Now, the other thing is Jeff McNeil. I talked about it when I brought you on, right? They brought in Lowry, and they now have all these. Now, Lowry's hurt, obviously, so McNeil has a chance to play some infield. But there were Met fans that were upset because McNeil wasn't going to get the at-bats. Then he plays yesterday, collects 4 base hits, another monster effort. So what will the Mets do when these guys come back from injury to make sure Jeff McNeil is getting at-bats?
Well, and that's the thing. Look, it's a fun question to talk about. Maybe, you know, what are they going to do if when Lowry comes back, if Alonso's hitting the cover off the ball and McNeil's hitting the cover off the ball and J.D. Davis is hitting the cover off the ball and go on down the line? It's probably not going to happen. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be other guys, you know, guys slumping, guys not doing this, guys not doing that. So we'll see. These things do tend to work themselves out. If everyone's hitting, it will be an awkward situation when Todd Frazier comes back and there's no playing time for him. It will be an awkward situation when Jed Lowry, this $20 million acquisition, comes back and you don't know where to put him. That's a really good problem for the Mets to have if that's the case, and they'll deal with it. Odds are something will happen that, you know, they will be able to. And look, that's why the Mets went out and got Jed Lowry. They wanted to create depth to cover every contingency. And that's kind of what they've done. They've had a couple injuries. They've been able to move past it seamlessly at the beginning of the season. So we'll see what happens as we get into the meat of the thing. Odds are this whole crew isn't going to be healthy the whole year long.
No, that's true. So when is Lowry expected back?
We don't know.
We don't know.
It's a great question. He hasn't been doing a whole heck of a lot. I would say at least a couple of weeks.
Todd Frazier, when is he coming back?
He's a little closer. He started playing in a game yesterday. I would imagine he'll start a rehab assignment when the minor league season begins this week. And, that maybe that second road trip, I could see him getting in a game. 50
at-bats. You take the over or the under? 50. I'll give you 100. 100 at-bats. Over or under for Cespedes this year?
I'll take the under. I just have to take the under until proven otherwise. You know, this is a very difficult surgery, 2 surgeries that he had on his heels. So, I think there's a lot of optimism that he can be back around the All-Star break, maybe in August. But as far as I'm concerned, I'll believe it when I see it.
Last one, forgetting about, obviously DeGrom was great, Syndergaard, Wheeler today, Matz. We know we've got the starting pitching. How nice is it, Anthony, to watch Lugo, Familia, into what has become an automatic save between Seattle and last year, Edwin Diaz? That is, you talk about the Yanks, that is as good as any 7, 8, 9 in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, no doubt. Seth Lugo, I think it's underrated as well. He had a rough day yesterday, but is one of the best relievers in baseball. We know what Familia can do. Edwin Diaz was the best reliever in baseball last season. So, look, this bullpen was 28th in the ERA last season. They almost have to be better this year. The names that they have back there, it's a much improved bunch, and it's huge. It's huge. How many times did DeGrom lose the lead last year?
Oh, yeah.
How many times did Syndergaard lose the lead? So it's huge, both for wins and losses, for the morale of the starting rotation, for everything the Mets have going on there. There's nothing worse than getting out to a big lead and suffering a crushing bullpen loss. So in a lot of areas, the Mets are a better team, and we're just going to have to wait and see how it all shakes out, because this is one of the toughest divisions in baseball.
No doubt. Phillies off to an undefeated start as well. And the Nats, they haven't won, but they're going to be tough too. Listen, your writing is great, and you're great on this show and all shows. So keep coming by, Anthony. Thank you so much. Great job today.
Thanks, Sid. You got it.
All right, there he is, Anthony DiComo. Make sure you're reading his stuff on the New York Mets each and every day at MLB.com. Read it tonight when Wheeler and the Mets finish off the sweep of the Nats. Still to come, Chris Spatola. great ESPN college basketball analyst, almost down to the Final Four. Danny B making his weekly picks, an NBA spot as well. 1-800-848-WABC, 1-800-848-9222. More of Sid Sports Sunday right after these words.
Sid Sports Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda. Each and every Sunday morning, 9 to 11 a.m.
Hey, go give it to you. Let's go get it.
77 WABC.
Well, let's do this. Chris Spatola coming up in about 7 minutes. Former Duke. I guess he was an assistant coach. No, he was a front office guy there, I think, with Mike Krzyzewski. Assistant coach. Okay, he's on ESPN now. And, again, 2 big college basketball games today. Both Virginia, first time since 1984. And Texas Tech, first time ever, on their way to Minneapolis for the Final Four, which, of course, starts on next Saturday. And a week from tomorrow night is the basketball championship from the state of Minnesota. Here's Mark, Edison, New Jersey, and he's on line 6. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Sid.
Hey.
I feel honored to talk to you. I'm a big fan.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you.
It's beyond my comprehension why you're not on one of the 2 big sports stations in New York, but hopefully that'll change one day.
They got to pay me. It's only that simple. Take some of those millions, you still give the big mic, but I love it here. I love it here. That's my answer for now.
Anyway, listen, I think I came up with kind of a creative, think outside the box bet. Just wanted to run it past you.
Okay.
You know, it's a bet that I think works great in baseball, but doesn't really work well in hockey. Let's say you have the Yankees are playing the Red Sox, and the Yankees, 2 top pitchers are going against each other. Let's say it's Sale and Severino. If the game's at Yankee Stadium, Severino's going to probably be minus 120. Sale probably be plus 110. And if it's at Fenway,
maybe. Sale may still be the minus 120, but it'll be close.
It'll be somewhere around there.
Right.
Okay. But, those bets really don't have any value. You're paying vig on that, too.
Yep.
You go to the minus 1.5 run line, okay? Now, the minus 1.5 line in Yankee Stadium, Severino's going to probably go from minus 120 to maybe somewhere around plus 160, plus 170. And then you go to what they call the alternate line, which I don't have to explain to you.
Runs, hits, errors, right.
The alternate line will have Sale minus 1.5 at Yankee Stadium at plus 200.
Right.
So now you got Sale minus 1.5 at plus 200, Yankees minus 1.5 at plus 170.
Right.
My feeling is if you bet both, you put 100 on each, it doesn't matter if the Yankees win, it doesn't matter if the Red Sox win, it doesn't matter if it goes over, it doesn't matter if it goes under.
Right.
There's only one way you lose money. And that's if the game ends in a 1-run game.
Right. No,
Name
listen.
any score.
It's not crazy.
That's not a 1-run game.
Right.
And you win.
Yeah, no,
now,
it's not crazy.
If you look at Thursday, opening day for baseball, I think there was 14 or 15 games. 14 out of 15 were non-run-one scores.
Yep.
So if you made that bet on every game, you won 14, you lost 1.
Well, you know what? It's not crazy, Mark. Very, very good job. I know I've got some buddies listening in Howard Beach right now. They're not thrilled that you just put that out there. But no, that makes sense. We're going to talk to Danny B coming up at 10:20 after Chris Spatola. You know the website, dbwins.com. After week 2 of the NFL season, he's had winning weeks on this show, going on now nearly 25 consecutive weeks. And, Mark, I will bring that up to Danny B because on the surface it sounds like it makes sense, right? We'll talk to Danny about it. Here's Joe Salamino on line 1. Good morning, Joe.
And good morning, Sydney. Something you didn't bring up earlier today, because I know you had a big night with Dwayne Wade and Friday night out in Staten Island, but the New York Islanders clinched a playoff spot.
Come on, they're limping in, please. They have really, I would not be beating my chest. I know they're in second place and fourth in the conference, but it has not been a couple of great weeks for your Isles.
No, but they made it, Sid, and considering that they hadn't been picked to even make the playoffs by a lot of prognosticators, got to give them a little credit.
It's been a great year. The goaltending was amazing, and Trotz did a very, very good job. But with all the points they've accumulated in the 90s now, again, fourth in the conference, if they're a one and done, no one's going to care and what the expectations were.
But this is where the final week of the season comes into play. They're 3 points behind the Capitals. Each team has 3 games remaining.
Right.
And the final game of the year is next Saturday night in Washington.
Yep.
So that could be for the Metropolitan Division. And your buddy Dennis Potvin played his last regular season game 31 years ago tonight. Now, to the NCAA tournament. Now, my bracket was shot last weekend. Here's my problem with the tournament. And I'm taking it from a different perspective because I follow the game a lot. I like the rules interpretations. I'm an official. The announcers on the games, Sid, I know you talked about the other day how you did broadcasting for the Arena Football League.
Right.
So I know you did your homework. You followed the rules. You looked up everything. So you knew what you were talking about. Some of the announcers on these games, the stupid over the back. There is no such call as over the back.
Right.
It's a push. And they keep saying this.
Yeah.
And there was an incident, I think, in the Gonzaga game. A guy made a basket, and the player and the opposition both called for a technical foul. And the announcer saying, it's a bad call. These guys just let them play. They're showing the emotion. No, sorry, Sid. You bump a guy, it's a technical foul. That's the bottom line.
Nice play, and it was a technical foul. I saw the play. I know exactly what you're talking about. It was... Look, Joe, I love you, by the way. Your calls are always great. Thank you very much. Nance is terrific. And I don't know all the guys that are doing the games. I guess Kevin, what's his last name again, from Kansas City? My buddy, I keep thinking about Kevin Nealon. Kevin, not Kevin Kugler. Come on, Kevin Harlan, who yells and screams. And they're fine. They're fine. But that specific call you're talking about, Joe, I did see it, and it was a technical foul. Quickly.
77 WABC. 1, 2, 3. Sid Sports Sunday. Every Sunday. From the NJDiet.com studios. 77 WABC New York. A Cumulus station. This is Sid Sports Sunday. Driven by Ramsey Mazda. Sid Rosenberg. The stories, the stats, the edge.
From the corner.
Meet the Mets.
Lopez wants it away.
And it's hit deep to left center. Andrew Jones on the run. This one has a chance. Home run! Mike Piazza, and the Mets lead 3-2.
The moments.
In the 8th inning, leading by 3 as Boone hits it to deep left. That might send the Yankees to the World Series. Boone, the hero in Game 7.
This is Sid Sports Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda on 77 WABC. Now, Sid Rosenberg.
All right, huge night last night, college basketball. Again, I was at Madison Square Garden saying goodbye to Dwayne Wade. Check out my social media today, Twitter at Sid Rosenberg, Facebook, Sid Rosenberg, Instagram, Sid Rosenberg. See the pictures of me and my son Gabriel, 10-year-old son, on the court, taking pictures with Wade. Thanks again to the Miami Heat for allowing me to do that. And it was a wonderful time. So I had to go back after I got home late last night, about 10:30, and watch those 2 great games last night. Virginia gets the win in overtime. They're back in the Final Four. First time since 1984. That team was coached by Terry Holland. They were a 7 seed. They made it to the Final Four. Ready for this? They lost to Olajuwon and Houston. Houston would take on the winner of Georgetown, Kentucky. Patrick Ewing and Georgetown against Sam Bowie and Mel Turpin at Kentucky. Georgetown would win that, and then Ewing and Reggie Williams and Georgetown went on to beat Houston. But that was the last time Virginia got there. And Tony Bennett and his father Dick Bennett become the second father-son combination ever, along with the Thompson guys at Georgetown, to both coach in a Final Four. Up next for Virginia, the winner of today's Kentucky-Auburn game. And how about Texas Tech? Fran Fraschilla on this show, Gunzy, a month ago said to me, watch out for Texas Tech. They D like nobody else. They, 16 turnovers against Gonzaga yesterday? They get to move on. They'll take on the winner of Duke, Michigan State, one of the very best in the business. I love this kid. He doesn't know who I am, but I love him. Chris Spatola, ESPN. I told you 2 months ago, Gunzy, this guy's really good. He spent some time at Duke. Now he's on ESPN, making his debut on Sid Sports Sunday. The aforementioned Chris Spatola. Good morning, Chris.
Sid, it's a big day, man. I've been looking forward to this. I hope you're doing well.
So you do know who I am?
Absolutely. Who doesn't know who Sid Rosenberg is?
You know, I'm being serious, Chris. I was watching the very first week of the season, about the time that Gonzaga defeated Duke, and it was you, it was Cotter, and I want to say LaFonso Ellis. And I'm watching this going, this guy, Chris Spatola, is lights out. So I texted Seth Greenberg and Grant Vashilla, and I was raving about you, and they were mad at me that I didn't know more about, he was at Duke, at Krzyzewski, blah, blah, blah. So tell my listeners a little bit about how you got to ESPN from Duke.
Yeah, I was on Krzyzewski's staff for 7 years, and, the coaching thing just kind of wasn't for me, man. I went to West Point, played there, spent some time in the military, and wasn't really sure, Sid, what I wanted to do after getting out of the Army. And Coach K had a spot on his staff. He hired me, and, it was great while I was there. We won a national championship, and it informs a lot of what I do now. But the coaching did one for me. I wanted to stay involved with the game. I started out at CBS, and then ultimately ESPN came calling, and I've been there for about 6 years now. So it's been a circuitous route, but I'm having a blast.
It's funny, every time somebody mentions West Point, I happen to be buddies with Vinny Viola. Of course, he and Doug Sifu own the Florida Panthers, but he's here in New York City at Virtue, and he's always back at West Point all the time. And Krzyzewski has history at Army. You went to that school. He's got history there.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, went there himself, played for Bob Knight there, and then he ended up going back to be the head coach there before he went to Duke. So he and I kind of go back with those roots, and it was great working for him. Again, it informs Sid. I mean, obviously my playing days and my time in the Army, and had a chance to deploy for a year to Iraq and did all that. So that informs a lot of what I do. But obviously my time with Coach K does as well. So I wouldn't give up those years.
Well, before we get to the college basketball, you just talked about it, Chris, and I'd be remiss not to mention it. First of all, on behalf of me and all my listeners, we love our veterans here on WABC. Thank you so much for your service. Chris Spatola did fight Operation Iraqi Freedom. I know you're awarded medals as well. So, Chris, that is some great stuff, man. Thank you.
No, it was an honor. I appreciate you saying that, Sid. You're a good man.
Thank you. Let's get to the exciting stuff because, again, you're really, really great on ESPN talking college basketball. Let's start with Texas Tech. You may have heard me say Fran Fraschilla a month ago told me, watch out for these guys because they really defend. We saw that last night. They caused Gonzaga to turn it over 16 times. So not a lot of folks, less folks than I thought would be, Chris. Not surprised that Texas Tech has made it this far.
Yeah, I mean, Fran knows the Big 12 as well as anybody. And I said a month ago, as they started to play better, Texas Tech, that they have the best defense in the country, and it's not even just my eye test or Fran's eye test. I mean, analytically, they literally are the most efficient defense in America. I've said for a while now, Sid, that Chris Beard, who's their head coach, is one of the 5 best coaches doing it in college basketball for a number of reasons. But that has certainly bared out. This Texas Tech team, I don't know if folks realize, they were picked 7th in the preseason to finish in the Big 12. They lost 5 of their top 6 scorers. They lost a lottery pick in Zaire Smith. And here they are in the Final Four. Their defense is unbelievable, but one of the reasons, Sid, they've made this push at this point in the year, they shared the Big 12 title with Kansas State, and in order to do that, they had to win 9 straight to close out the regular season. Their defense is a big part of that, but one of the other things is their offense has really come alive. They're making about 10 threes a game. They're shooting in the 40s percentage-wise, where they shot about 32% before that 9-game run. From 3. So their offense has really come alive, and it's supplemented the team they are defensively. But they took out arguably the nation's best offense in Gonzaga, and they can win this thing. I mean, a lot of folks may not know Texas Tech. I'm telling you right now, they could win this thing.
No, there's no doubt. Culver and Mooney can score the basketball. They play great defense, and beating Gonzaga, that's all you need to know. And as you talked about, the fire at the end of the year just to get where they ended up inside the Big 12. Now, lots of folks, Chris, taking Purdue coach Matt Painter to task today. I don't know why. Up by 3, fouling, I think, is a great move. A lot of weird stuff had to happen. Lorenzo Charles, Derek Wittenberg, all that stuff for Virginia to actually win that basketball game. And it did happen. But I think taking Matt Painter to task today is a bit much.
Yeah, well, folks taking him to task obviously are not math majors. I mean, the probability of all of those things that had to go right for Virginia, and that's why you foul up 3. I mean, that is the absolute right play to make. Look, I won't go through the whole list of things that happened, but we all watched it. I mean, that miss, start there. The miss that Jerome had for that to carry him the way it did, and the tap out, and all of that. I think more than taking Matt Painter to task, I think it's better to kind of focus on the fact that there were some unbelievable plays that had to be made by Virginia. The assist, the shot, then in overtime to do what Virginia ended up having to do. The only thing you could criticize for Matt Painter, Sid, is that play, at the end there where for Carson Edwards to even conceive of giving up the basketball after the game he had, I don't quite understand what was going on there. But outside of that, it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd to put this on Painter.
Not fair. Carson Edwards, another 40-point effort, 42 points. And, my sister, Chris, you'll appreciate this, she went to Michigan. So I used to go visit her all the time in Ann Arbor. She happened to be there the year that Michigan beat Seton Hall and won the national championship. In fact, Ramil Robinson was in her math class when he showed up. But over the years, I got to know Glenn Rice very, very well, and he and I became buddies down in Fort Lauderdale. In fact, he called me just a week ago, and that tournament that Glenn put together was as good as anything I'd ever seen. This kid, Carson Edwards, he does it all the time.
Yeah, and he's a lot smaller than Glenn Rice, right? I mean, for a guy who's as diminutive as he is, to put on the run that he's put on. And it just goes to show you, Sid, like this tournament, there's a lot of ways you can win. And one of those ways, I mean, it's like the run that Steph Curry took Davidson on. I mean, Jimmer Fredette had a run like similar to this, where, and Purdue is better than those two teams, Davidson and BYU. But the point is, if you have a guy who's on a mission like Carson Edwards has been on, and believe me, like, Virginia threw the kitchen sink at him last night. They threw a number of different guys on him. Then they tried to double him at some point. I mean, it was unbelievable. And it was, to beat that kid, again, Virginia had to put up some unbelievable plays down the stretch of that game. But to go for 42 in 2 games in the NCAA tournament, get out of here.
I know. It's crazy. But it is a nice story when you consider that last year Virginia, in historic fashion, loses to a 16 seed as a 1. Now, Chris, on the 10-year anniversary of the hiring of Tony Bennett, he becomes, along with his dad, only the second father-son combination, along with the Thompsons at Georgetown, to make it to the Final Four. So it is a very nice story for Tony Bennett and Virginia.
I wrote an article for The Athletic when they lost to UMBC last year, Sid, defending Virginia, because there are a lot of folks who, they start following college basketball this time of year, and the NCAA tournament, it drives a referendum on coaches. I mean, you have to win in order to be considered a great coach. And I get it. I understand that. But the thing for me, Sid, with what Virginia's done this year is getting to the Final Four is reflective of the team that they have been in the regular season. Like, they have dominated the ACC over the last 2 years. Yep. They won the league last year by 4 games. They lost 1 game. They were 17-1 in the ACC and won 32 games last year. And they had a bad night against the UMBC team that did something historic. But this year, again, they had a great year. I mean, they lost to 2 teams this year. They lost to Duke twice, and they lost to Florida State in the ACC tournament. They've had an historic year. And so for me, it is getting to the Final Four is reflective of who Virginia has been in the regular season. And I will say this, there are a lot of folks doing things, that don't have or have not done it with the class and the character that Virginia has done it, and I think that needs to be said. So I'm happy for that program, and I'm happy for Tony Bennett.
Chris Spatola does an amazing job on ESPN. Really does, NCAA basketball analyst. So they're awaiting the winner here, Chris, Virginia, of this Kentucky-Auburn game. Now, Kentucky did meet Auburn twice during the regular season. They blew their doors off last time, beat them by 27 back in February. Actually beat Auburn both times. And now you combine that with the fact that Auburn loses their third leading scorer and top rebounder, Okeke, to the injury last game. Why would I think Auburn, as good as they've been, would have any shot at beating Kentucky today?
Well, they're fearless. They're a lot like you, Sid. They're fearless. That's the first.
You do know me, Chris.
I do. They remind me a lot of Sid Rosenberg. They got no fear. They play with a chip on their shoulder. They and look, they lost Okeke in that game with about 8 minutes left against Carolina, and they didn't lose a step. I mean, they continue to roll. Now it's a tough task today because this Kentucky team has tremendous size. They got their guy back in P.J. Washington, who was the difference maker in that game against Houston. Auburn's going to have to do what they've done. They're going to have to make a lot of threes. They have 30 threes in their last 2 games. So they're going to have to make shots. They're going to have to be a little bit disruptive. They're going to have to get Kentucky to play out of character, turn the ball over, which they are certainly capable of doing. And they're going to have the tempo, where quick, fast, where they want this game. I don't think they're going to beat Kentucky, but I'll tell you what, they are on sometimes in this tournament, Sid, you know this.
Yep.
It's not the best team. It's a team that's on a heater, and Auburn's been on a heater, and they're fearless. And, I think it's going to be a competitive game.
Yeah, they destroyed North Carolina last game. Last one, Chris, going back to the other side of the bracket, Texas Tech. They're going to take on the winner of today's Michigan State-Duke game. Now, it looks like with a second straight game, Duke's third option after Williamson and Barrett, Cam Reddish, may not be able to go. Krzyzewski versus Izzo doesn't get better than this. Without Reddish, how much does that limit Duke, and how much better does it make it for Michigan State?
It makes it a lot better. And Trey Jones is a terrific point guard for Duke.
Yeah, but you can't expect Trey Jones to hit 5 threes again, can you?
That's exactly what I was going to say. I don't know if you can expect that performance that he put up the other night again. So, and here's the other element too. Like Duke with Zion Williamson is obviously a better team. They have never gotten back to the team that they were before he got hurt. There was a stretch there where they were by far the best team in the country. They haven't quite gotten back to that point. They're really vulnerable, and I think particularly vulnerable with some of the things that Michigan State does well. Like Michigan State, they are monsters on the glass, and that's where not having Reddish, obviously he'll give you some scoring, but he's a 6'8" athlete, and he's a pretty good rebounder. That's where I think they're going to miss Reddish, and they're going to miss, I think, his shot making. So it's a big deal, and I think you've got two teams. Duke has never really gotten back to that great team that we saw during the regular season, and Michigan State is playing their best basketball. Like, they finally have gotten guys healthy. They're getting other guys outside of just Cassius Winston to give them some offense and to make plays. I think it's a tough ask today for Duke. I do. I think Michigan State's going to end up beating them and going to a Final Four.
Wow, how about that? All right, so if Chris is right, we'll get Michigan State taking on Texas Tech and Kentucky taking on Virginia. Listen, I'm a huge fan. I really am. I'm really happy you came on the show today. It's great to have you, Chris, and let's keep talking, pal. Thank you for your service, and thank you for this great interview.
You said it was my pleasure. You are, I'm a big fan of yours as well. You're one of the best. I appreciate it.
Wow, thank you. Chris Spatola, everybody, ESPN. And if you're a college basketball fan, you know I'm close with all these guys. You know that. I'm close with Lavin, with Greenberg, with Fraschilla, with all these guys. Chris Spatola at the very, very top of the game. We'll take a short break. When we get back, we'll find out if Spatola's right about these games, as well as other games inside Major League Baseball, the NBA, our weekly conversation with the great Danny Bianculo, dbwins.com, right after these words.
77 WABC. Sid Sports Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda. Every Sunday, New York sports and more. 77 WABC and the free WABC radio app.
Let's get out here with a W.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. What's with the finger up in the air, Gunzelman? What is that? You first getting... Okay, that's fine. I could talk a little bit before I bring Danny on. Big day today. I mentioned FanDuel earlier. FanDuel is one of my sponsors on the Bernie and Sid show. Some reason they're not here yet, but they will be. And if you're going to play these games today based on my advice, not my advice, Danny B's advice, or even Chris Spatola, that's where you go. 7 NBA games today, 6 NHL games today, the 2 big college basketball games today, 2:20, 4 hours from now, Auburn, Kentucky, just after 5 p.m., Michigan State, Duke. And then, of course, all the baseball, Jay Happ on the mound for the Yanks in the Bronx against Baltimore. That's a 1 o'clock start. And then about 1:30 from Washington, Zach Wheeler on the mound for the Mets against the Nationals. Danny Bianculo has been a staple of this show since week 1. He has been magnificent. I think the first 2 weeks he lost in the NFL, has not had a losing week since. And he's so good, and I mean this, that he's got his own show now, Inside the Numbers, every Saturday night from 6 to 7, right here at WABC. So if you're excited about a big sports Sunday ahead of you and you want to make some bucks, you want to be listening right now. Bruce, give me that the little disclaimer.
This segment is sponsored by DBWins.com.
Here he is, Danny Bianculo, DBWins.com. Good morning, Danny.
Good morning, Sid. How was the game?
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, look, the Knicks, they've lost 62 games. And they played very hard. They led most of the way, midway through the third quarter. Heat needed the game, as you know, Danny. They're the 8th seed right now, just a half a game ahead over Orlando. So the fact that the game that was competitive was good. But I was there with Dwayne Wade, and to get the picture after the game with Gaby, that was amazing.
No doubt. A great picture, by the way, and they did cover the number. Miami was laying 7. They won by 8, correct?
They did win by 8, yes.
They did. I was upstairs, and we were hoping that you stopped by for a cameo, but I knew you were busy. But I was saying on radio, I said, hopefully we'll get the one and only Sid Rosenberg to stop by.
I would have come. If I was alone, I would have come, but I had Danielle and the kids. They were hungry, and it just so happens these tickets that I had, thanks to Corey Zelnick, got us free food at the Delta Club.
Yeah.
So by 6:30, we were in there.
How's the food in that joint?
It was very good. We had sushi. We had shrimp, big, beautiful, large cocktail shrimp. We had chicken. We had great prime beef. All kinds of great stuff. And then halftime, they bring out terrific desserts.
Oh, there you go. Anytime I've been there, I've been too drunk. I never ate anything, so I don't know no better.
Oh, the bar was hopping last night. Don't you worry. But I'm telling you, it was crazy because all those years down in Miami, I would get heckled, even my wife, as soon as we walked in. They'd all wear white, LeBron, Bosh, Wade, Shaq, all those guys. I would purposely wear blue because we always went to the arena when the Knicks were in town, and they would just kill me. But you'd always hear a lot of Knick fans in Miami. I couldn't believe last night the amount of Dwayne Wade loud chants. You would have thought, Danny, you were in Key Biscayne.
No, listen, on the path from Hoboken over to the city to do my show, I saw a load of them. I told Jamie's like, what's up with the shirts, the Miami shirts? I said, well, it's Dwayne Wade's last game. She's like, who's Dwayne Wade? I'm like, he's a legend. It's his last game at MSG. They're fighting for a playoff spot. I mean, this is a lot of support. I saw it right on the way into the city.
Yeah, tons of Dwayne Wade jerseys. And to be honest, as big as a Knick fan that I am, I was there for Dwayne Wade too. So let's get to it, Danny. I don't know what you want to reveal on this show because it goes, not just me. I had a really good night, but Gunzy, you had a very special day yesterday.
Yeah, the Devils. How about this? The Devils reach out. And they're like, hey, would you want to come to a game? I go, yeah, obviously, it's me. You know what I'm saying?
Now, many years ago, when the Devils first came to the Fan, like we had the Knicks and the Rangers, they went to ESPN. When I was at FAN, I was there when they left, and the Nets and Devils came to our station. And I would go to Devils games. I was living in New Jersey in Tenafly, Jason Siegel was the guy back in charge then. So I did some Devils stuff, but it's been many years.
Yeah, well, listen, they love the show. They love you. And so they hooked it up. They gave us a locker room tour. I brought my 8-year-old niece. My 8-year-old niece loves hockey. Her favorite sport's hockey, which is kind of cool. So shout out to her name's Quinn. But listen, the Devils gave us the locker room, sweet access. So you're talking prime rib, everything. And then Hugh Weber, who's the president of the Devils, and Scott O'Neill, the CEO, came, shook my hand, talked to me for a couple minutes, talked to us about you as well. So shout out to Prudential Center, Lara, Liz, everybody over there, and the Devils, and hopefully we'll do some giveaways, all sorts of cool stuff coming up.
Well, hopefully they'll have a better year next year. Some of the younger guys played well this year. Palmieri, he's got 27 goals.
Yeah, they need more minutes. You know what I mean? Hopefully by next year for sure. But shout out to the Devils.
Yep, nice job by the Devils. Always do a good job.
Yeah,
I'm serious. All the years I dealt with them, the Rangers are very tough. John Rosasco is a great guy, but the Rangers, they don't care because they sell out every night. Same thing with the Knickerbockers. Danny Sabrine's a great guy, but they don't care. Teams like the Devils, they do care. They've won 3 Stanley Cups. They've got great tradition, amazing history. Unfortunately for them, Lou Lamoriello is now doing it in Brooklyn with the Islanders. But teams like that are always more apt to being friendlier to the press, to the media, to the fans. And teams like, again, the Knickerbockers have lost 62 games this year. Folks, that's not bad. That is pathetic. I mean, they suck with a capital S. And you couldn't find a seat last night. You just couldn't. We're a city of millions and millions of people, and all you got to do is put 18,000 or 17,000 at the Garden. You're good to go. So who wouldn't want to be in that building on a Saturday night in Midtown Manhattan on a nice night in New York City? So the idea they sell out when you consider the amount of people in this city and the event that it is really isn't all that amazing. It makes sense. But don't confuse the issue. They're awful. Now, summer's coming up. They got a ton of money. Every fan that came up to me last night said, hey, next year, when you're in these same exact seats, thank you, Corey Zelnick, Kevin Durant's going to be here. Kyrie Irving's going to be here. Maybe Zion Williamson. Hey, that'll be great. When I'm at a Knick game and I'm clapping and going crazy from Moutier for Luke Cornett, are you serious? I mean, Kevin Knox, terrific young rookie out of Kentucky. But the guys I was rooting for last night, the big kid, Mitch Robinson, that was fun to watch him and Hassan Whiteside go neck and neck last night, but they are tough to watch.
I mean, when you really think about it, what jersey are people even wearing?
Today?
Yeah, no,
Knox.
I mean, yeah, that's.
But I didn't see one. I mean,
it used to be Porzingis, obviously, but they literally have nobody.
Not even Porzingis. All the jerseys I saw last night are still number 7, Carmelo. All of them. Yeah. All of them. Every once in a while you'll see a Ewing, but for the last couple of years I go to the Garden, all number 7s. And by the way, I've got one Knick jersey the last couple of years, and it's Anthony.
Really?
Who else?
Yeah, that's true.
Tyson Chandler? Raymond Felton? Who are you going to have? Who?
No, you're right.
That's it. All right, so tell me, news broke this week, too. Gunzy, this is right up your alley. It's a sport that you and Bernie both love. The UFC. Your guy, Conor McGregor.
Good old Conor.
Announcing his retirement, also seemingly in trouble for accusation, like Porzingis, of rape at the Beacon Hotel in Dublin, Ireland.
Right.
What's going on with McGregor?
All right, so here's the thing. It is absolute BS that Conor McGregor is retiring. It's just it's all for show.
It's all for money, right? He wants Dana White to pay him big money.
Exactly. So he's going to do a comeback fight. So listen, Conor McGregor is not retiring. He's not going anywhere. I guarantee he will be fighting in 2019. It's to show